I'd like to offer my sincere apologies for absolutely nothing. Um, Again, maybe we're starting the podcast a little later than I promised earlier, but life happens. And much like life happens, we need some more trades to happen. So we've got myself, the Broncos, the Giants, and Eagles talking through the NFC and some deals that need to be made. So we've already started off with the AFC last week, and now we get to focus on the NFC. And with three of us involved in the NFC, maybe we'll do better than I think four trades last week. So we're going to get to work. We're going to put in the time. We're going to put in the analysis, and hopefully we're going to get some stuff done. What do you guys say?
Let's roll.
I'm glad to be talking about the best conference in the league.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Nothing else, we're certainly top two. Anyways, so because we always go in the same order from the north to the west every time, we're going to go in a off the wall order here. We're going to start with the south. Why? Because why not? So I don't know if we ever gave Falcons the true deep dive on their team, um, but this can serve as that deep dive in addition to some trade suggestions. So talking through the team that Kyle took over here, obviously had a chance to three-peat last year and fell short because Brett is a terrible owner, but is loaded with offensive talent as well as value defensive players to potentially flip around. The challenge that, of course, is there is many of these players are starting to get expensive, which, as we've seen in the league, will, especially this time of year, uh, decrease the value rather quickly. So, again, with a team like this where it is competitive, the goal isn't necessarily to remake everything because you're not going to get the value you want from everything in terms of turning it over, but to do some targeted turnover, help yourself get a little bit cheaper, and then maintain your window of competitiveness. Before I go into examples, anything else you guys want to add on the Falcons as they stand right now?
Just that there's a lot of moves to be made, I think, to even get the team to a state where you can roll over into next year in a good spot.
Yeah, this is probably one of our more challenging teams in that sense. It looks really good right now, but it's going to take a lot of doing to make it like an actual viable team for next year.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of obvious what the moves are, but uh, we just need to see what he wants to do. There's 17 days left for him to do something. So
yeah, I mean the problem is it's not just him wanting to do stuff, but it's a market for others wanting to be on the other end of it.
Yeah.
So, kind of starting from the top, I would say what not to move. Kyler is at an all-time low, and people are crapping on him. You're not going to get the value you should, even though he's going to get more expensive too. So, I'd avoid moving him. Josh Jacobs is about to be a free agent, so unless you get an offer commensurate with his performance this year of RB1, I wouldn't move him. Probably the same story with David Montgomery. At receiver position, not a whole lot of value there.
Before Etienne, I think is also a really nearly unmovable piece.
Etienne, I disagree, and we'll circle back to that because I want to touch on the pieces that I wouldn't move first before I go to the ones that I would target moving. Same with Darren Waller. The contract is beastly. The player can be beastly, but he's had a really tough year at 80 points, so you're not going to get the right value for him either. And there may be a potential that not all of these players bounce back, but I would avoid sort of dealing with the low ballers by trying to make some moves too soon. Um, and then the defense, I think he's got a lot of rising pieces and rookies that there's not necessarily a bad piece to avoid moving here based off of how they performed. Now, Etienne, I would absolutely look at trying to move there because it seems that they want to use him in a variety of ways. Kind of get him the 15 to 20 touches, and they're not necessarily going to be in a traditional backfield role. But that said, in best ball, all he has to do is break one, and it's 15 points. So he's absolutely a player that if I can get him for a first round pick, I'm making that move. If it's going to require me 3 first rounders, forget about it. But looking at him as still a cost controlled running back linked to a rising offense, absolutely. That's a player I look to move. That value is near top what it has been, with still some potential upside.
I don't know. I kind of disagree. I think like not from his like value standpoint, just more of like I don't think that's the type of piece that you try and move right now. I think because he's cost controlled, he's going to be cheap for another 2 years. Like he's one of the best offensive assets on this team, and I would be looking at almost anyone else who's more expensive as like the piece to move. Like unless it was like a part of a package to clear like a shit ton of cap, and that's the sweetener that has to get it done. Where like you can downgrade some of your expensive pieces for longer term assets, but like I think Etienne is a piece you're building around as he's taking on this team, and it's a young player on a cheap contract.
The problem with this discussion for the Falcons specifically is we have no idea what his potential direction is actually going to be, because he's done nothing other than trade away Alvin Kamara. So is he going to try and rebuild this? Is he going to try and build off of this? Like, we don't know. But without knowing that, I mean, we're just looking blankly at, tradable assets, right? So ETN is definitely worth looking into. Are you going to have to pay top end prices to get him? For sure. I think Rachaad White is another one, with the assumption being that he's going to be, RB1. Might be worth looking at, especially with, the draft coming up. You never know whenever he might get picked off. Like, they might draft Bijan, they might draft Gibbs. You never know. Like, who thought Michael Carter was going to lose his job to Breece Hall of all people, right? Like, having a compliment is one thing, getting replaced by a stud is a whole other thing. But yeah, I do agree that Darren Waller you kind of have to hold on to down production. I think offensively, the piece there are two that stick out. Chris Godwin and Deontay Johnson. Renegotiate Deontay, trade him away. He has no value at 17. He has plenty more value at whatever it is. I think 10.
You can't renegotiate Deontay. He just extended him.
Yep.
Oh, well, never mind. You're fucked.
Why couldn't you couldn't renegotiate in the same year as a contract extension?
No.
Yeah. If
Not
it's a
when they're-
fifth-year extension, you can't renegotiate for a full year.
If he was to be traded, could you renegotiate him?
Nope. Not until rollover.
Yeah, there's some weird verbiage there.
Mm.
So Godwin would be an option to look at. The question is, what do people value him at? Not knowing the quarterback situation, that kind of deal. But he's still very cheap, so he's worth something. And then obviously he has defensive assets there as well. But yeah, I think honestly it depends on where he wants to go, because Kyler is the piece here, right? So he's definitely worth a first, regardless of his contract. Do you want the first or do you want Kyler? That's a great place to start looking.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I find it interesting that you're like looking at the rosters for like raw value here, because like in the context of this is a competitive team, I'm not trying to sell my highest valued assets. I'm trying to keep this team competitive and like putting as many points on the field as I can for next season and beyond. Like Godwin, to me, like the untouchables in this team are Etienne and Godwin on the offense, just based off of the value and the points that they're going to be giving in their positions.
I think you said Diggs wrong.
Well, again, the question here is the balance. You want to maintain the point scoring, but if you're trying to get value to recycle, there's a question of how do you do that? Do you do that based off of trying to take 80 cents to the dollar on the pieces that may not be there? Or are you trying to take 120 cents on, say, Etienne, even though there's some upside still baked in, and reinvest that and allow some of these pieces to rebound in value as we go through the offseason? So that's kind of the thought process here. It's the balance of, as RJ is wanting to say, manage the regular season like redraft, manage the offseason like dynasty. So are you selling distressed assets in the offseason when it's probably the worst time to do it? Probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But that said, the other piece that I think makes some sense here is Levante David. Getting a little bit older, but still a premium IDP piece at a reasonable contract. Selling him now allows you to do an extension before he goes to a single year left and you have to trade extend, and avoids any kind of holdout. But at the same time, from a professional standpoint, you may only have 1 or 2 years left of him. So opportunity to sort of sell while he's still at the right value before potential, cliffs or downside.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think in order to fit like the Kyler extension, like he needs to make moves at some of these bigger salary positions like David or Kendricks or both at linebacker. So I completely agree that those are assets that are still valuable, and in like market price, they're still probably even undervalued price wise for their price at the position, for the points of the position. But I know Kyle's like open to anything. Like he hasn't gotten a ton of offers. He's going to be patient, as patient as he can be. But
so maybe this will change that. Maybe people will come in and see if they can buy low on some of these players. We say not to move. Maybe he'll move some of the players we're suggesting.
I offered him a pretty sweet deal for Godwin, and it got declined.
I mean, at the end of the day, he can't afford all these pieces, right? So he has to move somebody, or maybe 2 people, like on the expensive side. So it's just going to be his decision. But I think if he wants to start, like jumpstart that, maybe he should jump into the trade bait channel and announce who he's looking to move.
Yep.
He's updated his trade bait a couple of times on the site. But yeah, Discord tends to get things going a bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, when you just I haven't said anything.
Oh, sorry.
Not any of it, but I'm not going to. I'm going to completely pass on this one. But I will say, like, I would agree with Bill. Like, he has to be a little bit more active. Like, decline with no comments on like good deals, like that. No wonder he hasn't gotten an overwhelmingly large amount of offers. Like if you get 1 or 2 of those from some of the more tenured owners, like if you decline something and you make no effort, they're just going to stop offering to you.
Yep. All right. Good amount of time. Extended period because is a new owner, so maybe I'll throw a couple of offers that direction, see if we can get some juices flowing in the process started. Moving to our current champ, the Buccaneers. So, interesting situation. Did just win the title at the strength of Jared Stidham, but is facing a real possibility of going into next year right now with no quarterback.
How does he only have like half a roster? I just pulled it up. He's got 24 players rostered.
I think he dropped all of his 1 years.
Mm-hmm.
He's still got some more
tags.
Yeah.
Yeah, the $5 million Patrick Peterson. I want another year of that. sorry, Mike. distracted you.
No, it's okay. I was trying to do it in introduction, but those couldn't wait. So as mentioned, 24 active players right now, 22 million in cap space. Potentially without a starting quarterback, depending where Carr goes. Robinson got relegated pretty well this year with the trade to New York, so that's a challenge. His receivers played well. Ingram came on well at the end of the year, and Max Crosby's a beast. Don't forget the linebackers, but definitely needs to, I think, shuffle things around a little bit here. I wonder, again, if anyone's listened to me over the last couple of years, I tend to be the team that would rather move a year early than a year late on a player. So with that in mind, I wonder if Eckler, Juju, and maybe Max, we see if we can break that down and fill some of the gaps that you may have in other locations, but at the same time, sort of only just downgraded the position instead of moving out of the position. And Max probably not as much. He's one of the more valuable pieces in the league because of his position, his contract, and his age.
Yeah, 5. I think that he's not.
But
Yeah,
I would absolutely look and see. Okay, that Eckler contract is sexy. I agree, but do you move off the Eckler contract while he's still getting sort of the share and 2 straight Pro Bowl years? That's going to be tough for him to continue to repeat, especially since his preference is to have someone sharing the load with him. At some point, this is going to fall off. So the question is, do you take advantage of it now, or do you wait till you start seeing the downside happen?
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about Eckler, yeah, he's going to be 28 next season, but he's going to be $1 million, right? Like the bad side of an older running back is they also might cost you $15 million, but Eckler, he could almost just ride him to the sunset and be like, it's probably fine. Yeah, he could try and flip him, but I don't know. That contract is juicy.
I think that his quarterback situation is fine. Derek is going to be a starter somewhere where we don't know. Austin Eckler is a high quality asset for sure, but what can you actually get back that equates to his real value? Sub $1 million, top 5 running back asset in the league. Nobody's going to pay what he's worth.
Yeah.
To the point where you can take your cap space and manage that. I would honestly look at Michael Pittman or T. Higgins, take your pick, and see what you can get out of that. They have 1 year left before 5th-year options hit. Cash out early, diversify your assets that way. I don't think that Bucks has any picks, so he's got to work with what he has pretty much. Figuring out a way to get rid of Cam Curl, probably a great idea. And I don't know. I know that he's great, but maybe getting rid of Foy would be a smart move as well.
Blasphemy.
Well, I mean, it's $14 million.
Give a shit.
I mean, so the thing is, though, he has $40 million in salary cap adjustments right now. So, I'm assuming most of that was 1-year deals. So, he could have $60 million going into the offseason. I don't think cap is really a concern with him, especially if Carr lands a starting job and not a bridge quarterback job, a team that drafts a quarterback behind him. I mean, $10 million starting quarterback is a steal. The only big contracts he's going to have coming up are going to be his receivers. I don't know. Yeah, I think he's got the foundation here. Obviously, I mean, he just won, so clearly his team was good. But he's got a really good foundation across the board here, and it's just a matter of how he uses that $60 million.
He has a unique advantage with having 2 starting caliber tight ends.
So his team's solid, and there's not a lot of things that I would say change. I would just write it out for another year. To Mike's statement with potentially moving Crosby, I do agree. Mike acknowledges he's probably one of the more valuable assets in this league, and just in general. Wouldn't be unreasonable to maybe shop him for a high-end quarterback if somebody's willing to discuss something like that.
Yeah.
But like, unless somebody's giving me like almost a Jalen Hurts straight up, I'm probably not considering anything for Crosby.
Yeah.
He's like the perfect combination of like he's still young, especially for that position. He's super productive. He's price controlled. He might be the most valuable asset in this league, other than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
The I would consider moving the other two linebackers other than Foye.
Yeah.
Frankie Louvu has a fantastic role in Carolina. He does a little bit of everything at an above average capability. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, PFF loves him grade wise. Like he's solid, but I don't want 7 years and 3 more years or 7 million a year and 3 more years connected to that. Might be able to like
He's
get
older
a
too, right?
no, he's
26.
relatively young. He kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember he tried to like send him to me on the offseason. I think it's like a cap dump, and I was like, I don't really want to take on this contract.
Oh yeah, I don't want
Whoops.
to. Him and Bucks and I had so many offers involving so many players that I'm like kicking myself, and Luvu's one of them. I would consider getting rid of Jermaine Pratt also.
He's
I
a
think
free agent.
yes, and I think there's a possibility that he goes somewhere else. He is a very good linebacker, and a lot of people realize it. And also, I think he's not as valuable to Cincinnati as he would be to other places. Like he can like they can just plug somebody else in as like an interior linebacker and like
Yeah.
will do just as fine, give you at least 75% of the production. Whereas Pratt could go somewhere that like the interior linebackers are like the focus of the defense and he could flourish.
Yeah.
So
I think Pratt you move as soon as he signs somewhere.
right.
Like that'll be probably the peak value, just for like the potential hype of him plugging in as the starting middle linebacker somewhere. I assume he'll be a linebacker. He might be outside, but
I would do anything to get rid of Cameron Curl if I'm the Bucks. Short of paying somebody to take him, like I'm doing my best just to get off of that contract.
Yep.
Yeah.
But other than that, unless so, like I have heard I've heard some things about like teams potentially offering for T Higgins as we get closer to draft time.
Like NFL teams?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if he becomes a wide receiver one, I would consider moving him for like he's already at peak value, but if you could like squeeze out an extra 10% because he goes to a more optimal team, like I think that would be perfect.
I don't know that.
I don't see that happening. Like just in a general sense, I don't see him getting traded in the NFL, and I don't think it's really a rational thing to do here. But just on the off chance that happens, I would consider doing it. Think AJ Brown last year. Like we all loved AJ Brown, but when AJ Brown became an Eagle, like we all were like, oh, like Jalen Hurts is throwing to him instead of Ryan Tannehill. So like.
Yeah. I think that the thing about Higgins though is like just his play style is like a 6'5" monster on the perimeter. Like I think he benefits from being like the number 2 and not having just a constant like corner and safety on him 24/7. If he goes somewhere new, if he's the number 1, like I'd be worried that he's not going to match his Cincinnati production.
I mean, I don't know about that. I think he would probably be similar to that. But I do agree that he is one of those that benefits from being a wide receiver too.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's take your pick between Higgins and Pittman. Just pick one.
Oh, I wouldn't move Pittman. No shot.
I mean, I wouldn't move either. Like it's not like unless he's the only way I'm moving like one of Eckler, Higgins, Pittman, or Crosby is if I'm getting a young quarterback out of the deal that I can build around going for the next like 5 years. But like I think he's got the cap. He has no cap concerns. He's got $60 million space next year. Like he's no reason to move them just to move them.
I mean, he's probably one of the teams that wants to acquire another wide receiver.
Yeah.
And that, but like, just that, like I said, that small possibility. Like there is a window. Some potential of moving Higgins for good profit and probably getting a good wide receiver back in that. But like, unless that happens, no, you just acquire wide receivers and try to move off of some of your defensive players. Or Tyler Higbee.
Yeah, as a sour Giants fan, I don't believe Evan Ingram has suddenly become a explosive threat. I mean, homie had like 10 drops a season for the Giants for 4 years. Like,
well, that's what happens when he goes to a place that motivates him, and he actually feels like he has a chance to be successful.
And again, it wouldn't be the first time a team, especially at a tight end has changed teams. On the second team is wildly outperforming his first team. We look at Hayden Hurst as well. Like there's examples on examples, especially the tight end position, where the pressure otherwise on the first team didn't yield what they wanted to yield, but by the time you get to the second team, it's gangbusters.
Yep, and a lot of those times the first team looks to be like the better option, and then they don't work out there. They go to a team that it doesn't look as fruitful, and they end up being more successful.
I mean, Hayden Hurst was tight end 19. I mean, I guess that's fine.
All right. Let's keep it moving here. Next is Panthers. Does not currently have a quarterback. Yep. Sort of building.
He's really hoping Will Levis falls to him in the draft. Or Richardson.
What's his earliest pick?
He's got his pick.
Okay.
So, again, very good best ball setup. We'll see when Javonte gets back. DK got expensive, but good positional value there. McBride didn't exactly knock everyone's socks off with his first showing this year, but has possibility. Defense has road to improvement. I'd be interested if I'm looking to move someone, and again, I'm picking this up from sort of a maximizing value perspective. See what someone would give me for Javonte right now. There's been enough distance in terms of when he got hurt, and I think a hope and an expectation that he's going to be ready to start the season next year, even though he may not be. But with enough other injuries happening and enough distance from when he got hurt, you might be able to sneak something past somebody there and make a solid deal really focused on defense. So that's my thought.
Yeah, I actually agree with that 100%. Javonte would have been one of the players that I would have picked out. He's still top 7 like dynasty running back, probably top 10 asset in dynasty right now, by the most people's rankings.
Yeah,
so
especially with the Sean Payton news too. Like, this is probably the perfect time to try and chop him around.
Yep, go find a quarterback. The only other one that I would say, I was gonna say one of the wide receivers, but I think it would just be George Pickens. Like, I don't think anybody's paying the proper price for DK. I don't. Cooks has been moved around enough. I think he just got him, so he probably wants to hold on to him for a season. Van Jefferson is not really worth much right now. I mean, that could improve, but I'm not selling at this point. But I don't think it would be unreasonable to try to get a first plus for like Pickens at this point.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a question of what's that value right now?
Right.
We're going to the offseason, so hope springs eternal in the offseason. It really looked like they were figuring things out in Pittsburgh there, and Pickens seems to be Pickett's guy. So, what does next year look like, and how does that team shift around? So, to be determined there.
Yeah, I would like to. I know he loves his linebacker room, and I think they're all like very good talents, but opportunity seems like an issue for his entire linebacking room. Maybe outside of Christian Harris. Um, that's like one area of the two that I would maybe look to like break down a wide receiver to add to.
Excellent. All right, let's move on to a team that could probably use a little bit more TLC. The Saints has been in the midst of this rebuild for a little while, but with Pickett, looks to have picked up a piece to potentially flip for a profit or continue to build around. Has a high pick himself, but outside of Pickett, not a whole lot worth moving, especially on offense. On defense, you got DeMarcus Walker, who performed well this year, but that's a big contract that probably won't necessarily be able to maximize. Some upside guys at the linebacker position. I mean, the thing here that becomes the question is he's just taking a bunch of shots at if this person signs or if this person blows up, what happens? And unfortunately, most of them have missed. So what do you do now? How do you prioritize some of these? A lot of these guys are on 2 or 3 year deals. Does it make sense to cut bait or hold on to the new year and take the larger cap hit in next year? I think that probably the big thing is since he has so much that he's still got to get, moving Pickett may make some sense. I think some hype, some strong finish. Team seems to have figured it out. And some of the upside that he's shown throughout the year and the fact that he should only get better makes him movable. I think the question is, are you going to get what he was drafted at? Probably not. But is there an opportunity to say pick up another early pick or, move down the quarterback tier and save someone some money because you have some of the resources available? That seems to be a starting point for a deal as things go. I know he's got Jamal Adams on his trade block, but I'm not sure he's going to do much for you at $10 million and coming off an injury. So the big thing seems to be either his pick or Pickett. And I think both may need to start getting broken down so he can continue to build out going forward, especially with the early pick that gives him.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I think he doesn't have as much like draft capital as I thought he might. So breaking those pieces down for just volume might be his best bet. And it might be worth it to like sit on 104 until the pick is up and someone might fall in love with whatever, top running back or receiver. Probably not running back is still there and they would be willing to trade up. But yeah, I agree. There's not much to like build on here for the long term. So I think he's got to try and sell now some of these assets that just aren't going to be part of his future and just, I don't know, recoup a bunch of picks or younger players who haven't really established themselves yet.
Yep. I actually agree. Kind of in the same sense that, like, you do like what Mike had pointed out, kind of gambling on some of these players. You just hope that it turns out better this year and you can keep, turning these extra players into picks and then maybe next year start building through the draft or the year after. But yeah, I would agree. Like Pickett is somebody that's probably worth shopping. And another thing that kind of adds towards his value is like there's a massive amount of support for him. Like people were saying that he should have went to the Pro Bowl over Tyler Huntley. So like that just helps, add a couple extra points of value.
Yeah.
Right now. He's looked at a little bit more favorably in a general sense.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a solid asset. I think it just depends. Like, I cannot see Saints not going into the season without a quarterback, right? And
you can't see him going in with a quarterback or without it?
I cannot. I think he's going to have one, and I think he's going to keep Pickett. Honestly, I think he will. And honestly, if I'm picking between Pickett or anybody in this class, I'm taking Pickett too. But generally speaking, I think like a sleeper up, like Jamal Adams was my one. Like he's totally pointless for this roster. You don't need him. Get rid of him. Get whatever you can out of it, and move on.
I think the problem is like I don't think anyone wants a $10 million safety.
Well, if he moves him before
can't stay healthy.
if he moves him before the deadline, you can
I'll take him.
The guy. But my sleeper one, and this is all about timing, would be Jelani Woods. If you can make it work at the right time, and granted, Saints is not exactly like a day in, day out active owner at the moment, so it's a little bit tricky to do this one, but if you could work the offseason to where like the news comes out and Jelani is the guy, whether that's true or not true, work it, flip him, move on. You don't have a lot to work with, right? You have to make the most of what you have, but he's like a solid sleeper one, as far as I can see.
Yeah, but also I would suggest taking advantage of the time to make some bets. Like, for example, pretty sure – no, never mind. Can't do that. So I don't think was Kyle Trask a first-round rookie?
No.
I don't think
he was
so.
third.
So I don't think you can do anything until next year. I mean, he's completed 2 full seasons. The question is, could you extend him now because he's completed the 2 full seasons, lock him in cheap with the potential that he takes over that quarterback job in Tampa because Tom moves on. Looking for opportunities like that, saying, all right, what's an undervalued asset that if things break right for me this offseason, that the conversation changes completely. So I think that's the other piece I look at for what Saints should be doing. But to do that, he's at 100 contract years. He needs to cut some guys so that he has the ability to do things like that.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to just give him some kudos on, though, is last year's draft. Just looking at some of his like second, third, and fourth rounder. I mean, I feel like he's got some good young, cheap pieces on the defensive side. Nick Bonito, I know, Mike, that was one of your favorites. You were trying to trade up for him in the draft. Sam Williams, I really like for the Cowboys at defensive end. Micah McFadden is in a starting role for the Giants. I don't know that he'll necessarily keep that role next year, but I think this is his first draft, right? He joined right before the draft. I feel like he did pretty good.
D'Angelo Malone was super productive for the small amount of time. No, sorry, wrong one. Was it Micah McFadden? No. He has another linebacker that's like young that was really productive for like a small snapshot.
Benito?
Luke Masterson for like a couple games at the end of the season here.
I might have been.
Yeah.
No, I forget who it was. I don't know. Keep going. Sorry to derail things.
No worry. I mean, yeah, I just wanted to give him some kudos for his draft. I know he probably took over pretty bare. I don't remember what original Saints looked like when he took over, but
not much better.
Yeah.
All right. Let's move to, let's go to a division that some of us are in. So let's go to the NFC East, and we'll start with the Giants. So one of us can start talking about our team. So what do you guys think? Should we let Giants go through his team first in terms of what he's trying to move, or should we do it for him?
We'll let him ramble for a little bit.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, I think the main thing that I am entertaining is just some of my more expensive pieces and trying to just get cheaper at some of those positions, mainly to try and fit an A.J. Brown contract extension, which I can fit currently after some of my capped up moves, but I would like to have more than just my salary adjustments going into the offseason. So those players, I mean, I don't think I'll find a deal for Josh Allen. I have tried, but I'm also pretty happy to just keep Josh Allen top 3 or 2 fantasy quarterback for the next foreseeable future. but yeah, so Mixon, Myles Garrett, Derwin James, those are kind of like the three, I think, big pieces that are kind of on the expensive side that I would be entertaining breaking down into cheaper replacements and maybe some picks to help just get some more depth on the roster. Because I gave Buck shit for only having 24 players, but I'm at 27. I guess, I mean, my four of my five IR guys will come on too, but I don't have any draft capital to replenish, so I'll be bargain shopping to try and fill in the roster.
Yeah, again, I think the challenge is going to be, like you said, the value's there to hang on to these guys. It can be a tough move to move off some of the contracts. Again, Mixon's had a productive season, but Perine started to come on. So what's that do? Hubbard showed well, but do they bring somebody in? Allen, $40 million, but again, 400-point scoring quarterback. Not many of those in the league. It's moving the piece for the right balance, for the right price, and someone being willing to pay up. I think that's going to be the challenge to hit that cross section, because I know you're definitely one like most of us who falls in love with players, and it's tougher to get some of these moves done. So to go with a particular suggestion, I would say, again, a guy like Garrett or Kittle, maybe priority. Kittle, because he seems to have a collection of quarterbacks now that can take advantage of his skill set and seem to really show off near the end of the season, despite not having a quarterback for the NFC Championship game and him on a good contract. This is probably an attractive time to try and move him. And Garrett, there seem to be some challenges inside the Browns locker room right now. But he has sort of regular value on the go, and is one of the best performing players at a position of need right now. So if you're looking to get cheaper, I think I think Kittle, it's tough to get cheaper with him, but you can probably fill 3 spots for the one by moving him. And Garrett, same kind of situation, probably even save yourself some money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Kittle is really hard because like the downgrade that you're taking at tight end for whatever you end up getting back, if you replace the position, like, yeah, he's a really hard move, especially with that contract. But yeah, I agree. I mean, I will say this: like, I'm not super attached to any one player on this roster, maybe outside of like I'm a pretty big Gregory Rousseau fan, but I would move anyone if I thought the value was there. And Kittle is no exception.
So there's a couple that I feel are strong candidates for moving, that you probably could get moved. I think that you need to find someone who still believes in Clyde and get rid of him. You need to find someone who still believes in Hamler and get rid of him before Tim Patrick is declared healthy again. And I think you need to get rid of Derwin James. He's just so expensive. I know he's productive, but he's just so expensive. If you're looking for a cheap option to get rid of, Michael Walker.
Yeah, I mean, the point though that he's trying to save some money. I think you hit on the point with Derwin. $14 million safeties are tough to pay, but frankly, his name recognition and production are going to make him a lot easier.
Yeah,
I mean, number one safety. Yeah, he's the only safety I would be willing to pay $15 or $14 million.
Would you?
Totally.
Would you rather pay AJ's $25 million?
I don't have to make that ultimatum because I can fit AJ in right now.
But you can't extend him.
Wait, well, yes, I can.
Oh, you have the room for that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's $23 million.
I have $23 million in space. I have 22 in cap adjustments going into the offseason. So like I can fit. So like when I did the cap dump with Charles and Menahu as the sweetener, that gave me exactly enough room to sign AJ.
So the problem is it doesn't give you. I don't believe it gives you enough room to sign
To
AJ.
bring, yeah.
While
Give
also
the IR
reactivating
guys.
players.
Yeah. That's
So-
still. Yeah, I still have to do at least one thing before the deadline here with one of these expensive pieces.
I think the nice part about your situation is that most, if not all, of these guys can still net you very quality picks. Like Joe Mixon can still get you a first round pick, in my opinion. Now, do you want to get rid of your RB1? Maybe.
Yeah.
Could you use that pick depending on where it falls to get a replacement? Sure, of course. But it's all about finding the right person. Like,
yeah, I mean, I turned down a late first for Joe Mixon. Like, that would have made my cap situation easier, but I don't think I would have been able to replace his points at the position with a late first rounder.
Nope, you'd have to wait a year.
Yeah.
At best.
I think something interesting for you is going to be if Miles Sanders goes back to Philly or if it's Gainwell's job, then getting rid of Mixon might become much, much easier for you.
Yeah. But ideally, I make my one big move here, whether it's Miles, Joe, or Derwin, in the next couple of weeks before rollover, so that I can just kind of run it back with the current roster.
Yeah, and
I can't really wait for that Sanders news to drop, but
yeah, I will say this: Rousseau might be like a great piece to get value. Like move him plus like Clyde for a first plus, because moving Clyde by himself is not going to be an easy thing.
That's true. I have been knocking.
So like obviously you need to move one of the two expensive things.
Mm-hmm.
Like that kind of goes without saying. Derwin or Garrett. The other thing that I would consider, or at least this is probably your peak value, it would be Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, I don't know that it's peak value. I really like Jeudy. I'm a big fan of like fast route runners, and he's only 23, despite the fact that this was his third year. Like, he's so young. I'm a big Jeudy fan, but that is certainly a chess piece that I could dangle out there as a way of getting something done.
I think that's really the only thing you like outside of everything that's already been discussed. I would like if you're moving like one of those cheap offensive pieces, like basically to also move like a Derwin and get back like a King's ransom for like two pieces. I think that like moving a Jeudy Derwin package for like a haul of first is a lot easier to do than like getting adequate compensation for Kittle. So that's my only suggestion.
Yeah.
I'd also say even though you can extend him and he's going to be expensive, this might be the last year where AJ Brown is in the top tier of dynasty receivers with the guys that are younger than him, and he may slide out to like the second tier. So this might be the last time that you can get like max value for him, but I don't know if that's really of the utmost importance.
Yeah, I mean, I would move AJ, but I think that it might have to be like a post rollover situation, just with the cap issues and like his extension. He's $24 million. It's hard to fit that in and get the value that I want.
Right. The AJ comments more just about like at some point this season is probably the time to sell him. But obviously like right at this exact moment, you're not forced to. Yeah. Just if you want the most value, it's gonna have to come at some point this year. And if you don't care about like getting the best value for him because you like the player, that's completely understandable. He's the type of player that like it's fine to just hold on to and let him not diminish in value, but like just hold on to him through their peak production.
Yeah. My whole plan was actually derailed because I didn't pick up on the 5th year option piece where you can't renegotiate them. So like this whole season, I think I talked about it on your prior pods. Is like I can't wait to renegotiate AJ Brown because he would have been in at 17 million. That would have been fucking great. But yeah, I missed that rule.
All right, let's keep it rolling. From here on out, we'll talk about the Commanders. So, again, strong performance this year, but this reeks of a team that needs to make a bunch of trades this offseason. Tua says he's coming back, but from those levels of concussion, is that something that's a smart, healthy thing to bank on long term? That decided he's not going to get the value for Tua he wants in the deal. So, and he may not have a quarterback at this point. So, needing to go get one there. Gibson was getting phased out. Dallas is getting phased in, but probably doesn't have a long-term role. Cook is old. Needs a running back. Reek, Mike Evans are studs. Other guys are opportunistic based off of their opportunity this year. To get some of the pieces he needs, he probably needs to break one down. Komet came on strong, and then the defense needs a lot of help too. So I'd say take Hill, take Evans, break them down, see what you can get to fill in some pieces. Same with Cook. I don't think he has his 24 first. I think he had it and then traded it. So the big thing is see if we can get that back and or figure out the best way to take advantage of, the current situation. I'd say, like I said, starting with the receiver and then using that to help drive some of the players off his team as well while maintaining good value. So good starting point.
Yeah, I think his trade bait is always pretty juicy. Like I think he's willing to move all these guys. And I totally agree. Those are the pieces. Like Cook is, there's been talk of Minnesota potentially being in the Bijan conversation in the draft. Like he might be, in a committee. He was kind of already in a committee this year, but going forward, if at any kind of role, Evans is almost 30 or is 30. He'll be 30 next season. That's pretty old for like a big-bodied receiver. Obviously, Reek is great, and I like that stack with Tua. But who knows if Tua is going to be? I know they're saying they're running it back with Tua for next year, but 3 concussions in like 2 months. I gotta assume like one more, and he might be having some serious life conversations. DeMarcus Lawrence and Leonard Williams are 2 pieces that they're both aging and might quickly decline, but they're pretty good contracts. Like those are pieces you could maybe try and flip to get younger at the position. Yeah, the defense just could use some help. He's got a lot of players at corner and D tackle for some reason.
Yeah. Any additional thoughts, gents?
He's not going to take below value for anybody. He's pretty good about making sure he gets his value returned. So if you want Evans or Hill, you're going to have to pay for it, obviously. But even at 30 years old, there's still quality. I'm not worried about Tyreek until his speed goes, and Evans is proven to be able to do it with anybody.
With anybody.
Yep. Yeah, he's consistently done it throughout his whole career.
That scrub Tom Brady guy.
So, kind of missed the boat on Dalvin Cook. You kind of just have to go with it for whatever he's going to be, because nobody's going to pay any type of value. I think the only 3 movable pieces where you get like a good amount are the receivers. I think you get a lot more for Hill than you do Evans. Even though there is a price discrepancy, Hill is going to be a stud for the next few years.
Yeah.
And then the next one is DeMarcus Lawrence. And I think Lawrence is the actual play here, and you just see if you can get a first for him, or or comparable player in a second, something of that nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he's willing to pay for it, finding someone to take Matt Ryan, might be worth paying for just to clear up some space.
Yeah, it's not even that much of a burden.
Yeah, he still also has 5 first-round picks. One this season and 4 in 24. Which like, he has the ammunition if he needed to overhaul this roster. I think honestly he just needs to be more proactive. Like I think he's open to anything, but is maybe more reactive to offers. And I don't know if now post pod might be a good time to get in the dirt and try and make something happen.
Yeah, it's always a good time post pod. All right, let's keep it going. Eagles, RJ,
Yes,
tell us
sir.
about yourself.
Well, I'm kind of at a crossroads right now. I have a pretty nice defense still with the trades that I made. So I can sell those older, aging pieces for whatever I can get and keep adding to my war chest of picks, which I wouldn't be opposed to doing. But I would like to, I mean, I think everybody would like to just buy whatever they can. So, if I can find some people with some wide receivers that are 26 or younger and not the wide receiver 3 on their team, I'd definitely pay up for them.
Yeah.
But I think at this point, just given the lack of things on the market, I'm more in the selling right now. And I mean, you guys will pick the players, but for the most part, I'm just selling defense at this point.
Yeah.
But if anybody does want to sell a young quarterback or young stud wide receivers, I do have the picks to pay for them. As long as I don't want to squabble about where those picks are going to be, because we still have a season to be played before then.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember having those challenges.
A first is a first is a first.
Yeah. I feel like you're going to be the happy camper during the draft when in the first round, like middle, late, if someone's guy is gone that they were really targeting and they're like, I just want to get out of this pick. I'll take a pick next year. You're just going to be able to swoop in and be like, well, take your pick of these 7 and I'll steal a guy that should have gone a little bit later.
That is definitely a possibility. Unless something really shiny and flashy comes on the market, I see myself holding on to these picks until at least draft this year.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there's a marriage here with you and Saints. Like we were talking about, he needs to break some pieces down.
Well, he has one offer out there right now, and we'll go from there.
All right, Saints. Here's what I say, Saints. Rake him over the coals.
Wow. We say nothing but positive things about you, and as soon as you get RJ on, the tone changes. Keep that in mind, trade partners, in terms of what he's trying to sell you. All right. Let's talk about the team that loves trading more than anything. It's the Cowboys. I mean,
I'm happy to go first here.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have always been on the boat of he has a good team, and if he just was a little more active, like he could have a contender. At least like a playoff team, even in our stacked division. I really like Trevor Lawrence, and I think he finally showed this year some of that ceiling that we were hoping for last season. Obviously, running back like Cam Akers, who knows? At the receiver position, he's got like decent depth. I think he had some injury issues, ravaged pretty much everyone. But Johan Dotson was a great pick in the draft. I think at the time I ran it like a little early, but he showed flashes during the year as a receiver number 2, despite really crap quarterback play for Washington. I like his quarterback as a tight end room from a depth standpoint with Okonkwo and Irv Smith, although does he pick up the option? I'm not sure. And then obviously, his linebackers are very sexy, and probably the pieces that he could move to really fill out the rest of the roster. Parsons, Kayvon, or TJ Watt. I think I think he's got the pieces here, and I'm pretty sure he has all of his picks for eternity. Yeah, I think he's missing this year's second, but otherwise he's got pretty much all of his draft capital. Like he could make this team into a playoff team and a contender if he was motivated.
Yep, this is a team that definitely like rebuilt the right way, and he's at the like. You would like to assume he's at the final stages. He's already done the legwork and he's filled out every other position. Now it's the 3 big flashy positions that he needs to fill out. So if he just finds players that he likes and he pays up, like if he finds a running back, a wide receiver, some defensive ends, he's solid.
Yep.
But if we're talking about breaking down pieces, I completely agree. The only rational things you're breaking down are the linebackers, and it's probably just one of them into like some maybe some more depth at running back because that, or defensive end, because those are like real issues, and then like a big wide receiver or like a pick to go get you a wide receiver, something of that nature. Just the big thing is like you can find running backs throughout the season and like pick those up and kind of have like your own little platoon of production. Defensive ends a little bit harder, but we've all talked about like you can find some good value with like the old farts that are still being productive. I'd imagine Calais Campbell will be back for the next 7 or 8 years. He's going to play at least until he's 58, and he's going to have at least 5.5 sacks every year. So like if you can go by those players, but it's like if you can find the wide receivers to put together, and like he's even at a point where like he doesn't have to spend crazy value. He can go buy like the Keenan Allen types, the Adam Thielens, the like 30-year-old and still productive, and just like give himself an honest shot at like the playoffs for a year, and just after that year reassess what he wants to do.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'll round it up. I think, he's rebuilt. Now it's time to do something. Get Watt back with Parsons and Thibodeau. That defense could be nasty. Throwing in some pieces at the end, and then supplementing up front. Like, I'd say trade your pick this year and see if you can fill those in. One spot's not going to do it. You need 2 or 3. Cash in on the thirst that is rookies this time of year and get yourself in the hunt. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm trying to pick up what his draft pick number is. He's 7. So I mean that could be like the wide receiver piece that he's missing, and then it's just can he break down a linebacker to get some depth at DE and running back or something.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean I think this could be the year that we finally see him. I'll say like try and like flex this roster to be as competitive as it can be.
Yep. The nice thing is outside of like Vita Vea, who is like a little bit older of a rookie because he's 27, right? Yeah. Like the rest of his core is relatively young. So like I said, you can take a shot at it, and like if he doesn't do as well as he'd anticipate, he can kind of like just rebuild with a lot of the same building blocks and just like, all right, it's just a year older. Like everybody's still in their early 20s and productive.
Yep. All right, hour in, and we're only halfway through the NFC. So, what do you guys think? Stop and get to post pod and do a part 2 of the NFC, or keep powering through?
We could do a speed round, try and just like run through the last.
No, we should give everybody like a reasonable amount of time. I'm not opposed to cutting it off. It gives us more things to discuss, and gives us another week to accumulate trades, so we don't have to talk about them this week.
Sure.
Yeah, because we don't quite have as many to talk about. So let's do that so we can get to the fun part. We'll do the West and the North next week. So anyways, good luck, good hunting, and we'll get to those that we missed this week, our apologies. But yeah, spent a little bit more time getting deep on some of these things, and that'll happen sometimes. So get out there and get those trading numbers up. Those rookie numbers right now, guys.